I'm in a position to tell stories that the vast majority of people aren't, because most people aren't mixed race and they don't know. And the plays that I've written have always had some kind of, apart from Red Cuts, have had some racial element in them. Yeah. Not because I want to be a token or a box ticker, but because that's what I want to talk about. That's what what I want to say about the world. So if I have a platform, I feel I have a responsibility to say, the homogenous mass that have been writing plays for 100 years haven't talked about this, so I'm going to talk about it.
Yeah. Welcome to So This Works, the lifestyle and business podcast about work-life balance. My name is Marcus Lee and I'm your host. On this episode, I'm joined by Nick Ahad, a writer, broadcaster and stand-up comedian. Nick has his own show on BBC Radio Leeds and can be seen performing up and down the UK on the comedy circuit. Today we talk about the challenges of being a content creator, how he started in radio and stand-up, racial politics, and the importance of forging your own career path. And we have a good laugh along the way. Nod your head as the beat kicks in. This is episode 7 of So This Works. Here we go. I know you probably wouldn't call yourself a filmmaker, but you have made a film or films.
How dare you? I've made 4, 5 films.
4? You see, whenever I talk to you about your filmmaking, you always sound a little bit reluctant to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, because I guess, I've written plays that have toured the country and, we've been reviewed in The Guardian, and I wrote for Emmerdale, so my stuff's been on telly. In terms of films, I don't know, I really love, probably of all the things that I've done. Actually, do you know, I've never thought about that. Of all the things that I've done, the thing that I've loved doing the most is making short films.
Right. Okay.
But I've just not been very successful with them.
Yeah, but you just do what you can, don't you? You put yourself out there. One of the films that I think the first film that I saw of yours, and I should have researched the title of this beforehand, like a professional host. The film that takes place in a taxi.
Yeah.
What was the name of that film?
It's called Where You From.
Where You From. Yeah. I love that.
I love it. Actually, do you know what? I watched another of my films just recently because I'd stumbled across it. I've been trying to find it for ages. And it's called The Wrong Toilet. Okay. And I made it for a Virgin Media competition. It was a 2.5 minute film, and it's about a guy who goes into the women's toilets by accident and gets stuck there. I really loved making that one. But no, Where You From was my first film, and it's mad, isn't it?
What year are we talking about there?
So I think it will have been about 2010-ish. So what happened was I'd written Nor Any Drop, my first play.
Yeah.
And like I said, I didn't know what I was supposed to do next, because I'm waiting for the phone to ring and it'd be a West End producer. Turns out that's not what happens next. I went to some kind of course at I went to a course at Huddersfield University where I went into the women's toilets by accident and I got stuck in there, which is what inspired the film that I'd gone to make 4 years later. Yeah. But I was at this course, and basically what happened was the lecturer said, a short film is a really good way to get your name out there. And then they said, in fact, Bradford has just got the City of Film status. Yeah. And they're looking to commission some short films. The deadline's tomorrow, so you're too late, but watch out for things like that. Yeah. Me, I go home. In fact, no, during the lecture, I started writing a pitch for a short film. Yeah. I go home, I stay up all night, I finish writing the pitch. Yeah. I hand deliver it at 5 to midday into the offices of the City of Film. Yeah. And 2-3 weeks later, I get this email that says, "Thanks very much for your application." And genuinely, I'm assuming that I'm not going to get it. I've never made anything. I don't know where to begin. We're delighted to tell you. And I was like, what? So I go in for a meeting with Gideon Seymour, who was the first director of City of Film for Bradford. Yeah. And he says, "Look, we've got 6 people that we're commissioning. You're the only one that's never made a film before, but we like your idea. We're going to take a punt on you. Here's your check for £1,000. And I was like, I'm a millionaire.
I've made it, Spielberg.
Little knowing that £1,000 buys you maybe breakfast on the first morning of a film set. It's ridiculous. Yeah. But what was beautiful about that film, and the reason I love it so much, is that, and you'll relate to this as a filmmaker, because when you think back to your first things, I didn't know what wasn't possible.
Yeah.
So I didn't know the rules. So when we get to the premiere, and they screened all the films in a theatre in Bradford, so everybody else had made like a 2-minute film. There was one that was less than 60 seconds. My film is 12 minutes long.
Right.
I didn't know that £1,000 was supposed to buy you a minute of film.
Yeah.
So I just made the film that I wanted to make.
Yeah.
And it's insane. Like, it's so illegal, most of the stuff we did. You're right, there's a scene in a taxi. So you go, well, how do we film a taxi? I need some exteriors, we need to film inside the taxi. So I I was buying a new car anyway, so I bought a convertible. So I could stick the cameraman in the back of my car and have the driver of the taxi kind of follow us down Leeds Road. We got up at 5 a.m. one day. We got everyone gathered. My mum made breakfast for everybody.
Yeah.
And in the back of my convertible, we had the cameraman hanging out. And he was filming as we went down. And we did a loop of 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
I also had a scene that was in a classroom with 30 school kids. So I went to a local drama school and I was like, any chance you've got some kids we can have?
Yeah.
And we filmed that one weekend. We went up on the moors. It was ridiculous.
It's guerrilla filmmaking, isn't it? It's just let's get what we need and let's just do it. But I love that. I love that style of filmmaking.
I really enjoyed it. I've got to say, I really enjoyed it. And it screened at a couple of festivals and it did. What I didn't know was what you're supposed to do once you've made the film. You go, well, it exists. What do I do with it next? Didn't really have a clue.
Yeah.
And I since made so I made that, and then and there was a 24-hour film challenge. Mm-hmm. So we made a film in 24 hours with the same person that I'd made the first film with, and that one looks amazing.
Yeah.
I must show you it. It's called The Game of Life, I think.
Okay.
That was the title we were given.
Yeah.
And it's rubbish, but it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's the best looking film that I've made.
Yeah. Do these things exist on YouTube or anywhere?
Somewhere. I had them on my website for a bit. You'll have to show me how to put them on YouTube, because I'd love that. No, I love the films.
Yeah.
Made another one called 7 Miles from Bradford, which was really ridiculous but very funny to make.
Yeah.
And then, what was the other one? And then the Virgin Media. So that was my last one.
Yeah.
So I've made 4 short films.
Any plans to make any more?
No, I'd love to, but it's so hard. It's like the hardest thing. I think I've been toying recently with some film script ideas. I want to write a zombie movie. I love zombies. Yeah. I don't like scary films. I'm not very good with scary films, but I love zombie movies. But it's so hard, Marcus, making films. Believe me, I would love nothing more than for someone to give me a shed load of money for me to make a film. But actually doing it and raising the finance and stuff, it's just a different world. Don't get it.
Fair enough. So that's filmmaking, but obviously you also work in radio as well, so we know a lot about your radio. How did you move into working on the radio?
So that was, again, I am aware that all the stuff that I say sounds a bit weird. You kind of go, I'm sorry, what is it you do? And so I am also a radio presenter. How that came about was... It all happened at the same time that I left the Yorkshire Post and joined Emmerdale. It was the maddest couple of years. So I'd say we're getting on for 8 years ago, back in 2013-ish maybe. BBC Radio Leeds rang me up and said, we've got a theatre story. We know that you're the arts person for the Yorkshire Post. Can you come and comment on it? Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, I'd love to. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to tell you a story that I've never told because...
Is this a world exclusive?
It's something that I shouldn't say because it might hinder my career, but whatever. So what happened was this. I went on BBC Radio Leeds and I gave a comment on this story. And I did a good job, so they asked me again the following week. And I thought, I better just check this with someone. So I went to see my deputy editor. And I said, look, BBC Radio Leeds have asked me to do this thing. Is that all right? And my deputy editor said no. And I was like, why not? And he basically said, because you've got to be impartial as a journalist. How can you be impartial if you're going to go on and make a comment? And he tried to block me.
Okay.
And I was so angry. And actually... that could have really derailed everything if I'd have listened to that guy. I now think he was... was it professional jealousy? I don't know. I don't know why someone would try and block that. I was really angry. But because of the schooling that I had and everything, and I guess being raised with an Asian father, like I really defer to authority. So if someone in authority tells me to do something, I do it. And like I say, I've not talked about that before because it's a negative thing. But actually, I think there's a real lesson in that, because what happened next was they rang me again, and I thought, do you know what? I'm doing it. I'm not letting this guy standing in the way of my career.
Yeah.
Had I not taken that decision and just behaved in the way which I did the first time, which was to go kind of doffing my cap and saying, please, can I have permission, sir? What happened next wouldn't have happened. So I think I wouldn't encourage people to ignore authority or whatever, but actually examine why someone's telling you something.
Yeah.
That guy had no reason to tell me not to go on the radio. Anyway.
Do you think if it had been 10 years earlier, you might have said, well, okay, yes, sir, fine, sir, I'll do what you say?
100%.
Do you think it's just experience that
100%.
makes the difference?
And I think not to get... I'm sure we'll come on to this, because racial politics play a really big part in my life. But not to labour the point too much, but, you know, I was a brown bloke, and I've always existed in quite a white world. When I joined... So my first job was at the Wiltshire Gazette and Herald. Not only was I the only non-white person in the office, I think I was the only non-white person in the county. You know, and when
They spotted you walking down the street. There he goes.
I'd go to interviews. I'd knock on the door, and you'd see people do a double take. I go, "Hi, I'm Nick from the Wiltshire Gazette and Herald." Oh, you're Nick, are you? Then all right.
Like they're expecting. Oh,
well, because the other thing is, I sound like this.
Yeah.
Like I don't. My dad never taught me to speak his language, so. Yeah. And I asked him why years later, and he was like, "Because we didn't want you to have an accent."
Right.
On the phone, on the radio, even. Like it sounds a strange thing to say, and I'm willing to talk about it. Happy to talk about it. But I passed for white. Like my dad called us Nicholas, and my brother's got an English name as well.
Yeah.
And the reason he did that was to give us a pass in the white world. I mean, we're never going to get a full pass because I look like this.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. So I was very deferential, and I was glad that actually I found my courage, and I said the second time BBC Radio Leeds asked me, I was like, and also there's a little bit of mischief. I was like, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yeah.
So long story short, I did the second thing, and then I thought I really like this. Emailed the editor and said, can I have a meeting? Went in to see her, and I was like, look, as the arts editor, I think I've got something to offer. So what happened was I was given a half-hour slot on the Saturday morning show, which is like 9 till 12. And so for a year, every Saturday morning, I'd get up and go into BBC Radio Leeds, when they used to have an office in Bradford, actually, and I'd talk about theatre for half an hour. And I loved it, Marcus. There was a real moment, actually. I used to, on a Friday night, I'd sit and I'd write down everything that I was going to say. And then one Friday night, there was some kind of do after work, and I went out and I drank a lot of lemonade. So I was a journalist. I used to, part of being a journalist is, certainly when I was doing it, there's a lot of drinking. You go to the pub how's the phrase go? All the best stories you get in the pub, everything else is an advert. Yeah. So there's a lot of meeting contacts and stuff like that. Anyway, so I got this Friday night. It was the first time I'd done it since I started doing this regular slot on BBC Radio Leeds. So the following morning, I turned up hungover, and the producer, who would go on to become my producer, was having a bit of a laugh with me. He was like, "You're a real state, aren't you?" And I went in, and for the first time, I was just winging it. So I'd not written my notes or anything, and I came out. And he said, that was brilliant. He said, that's the best that you've done. Because I'd just relaxed. I wasn't going, and then I think you should go see Macbeth, because that is a very good play. I just went in and I was like, man, I'm not well. This is what I think about this play.
Yeah.
And so about a month later, the producer said, do you remember that conversation we had? He said, yeah. He said, that wasn't me telling you to go out every Friday night, because I basically turned up hungover every Saturday for a month.
The norm. The new normal.
So what happened was, I think maybe after almost a year of doing that, incidentally for no pay or anything, someone at the newspaper office said to me, why are you doing this? You're going there for no pay? And my response was to say, if you don't know, then I'm not going to explain it to you.
Yeah.
Because within a year, I'd been given the opportunity to present that show. So the presenter was off, and I was a fill-in presenter.
Yeah.
So I suddenly became a fill-in presenter for BBC Radio Leeds. And I covered the lunchtime show. I covered the mid-morning show, which is 9 till 12, and I covered the Saturday show.
Yeah.
And then I'd say maybe 6 months later, I was given the Saturday morning show. So it became my show. So all of a sudden, I mean, it was insane, Marcus. I've got the Nick I Had show. It was mental. And then we changed it, actually. It's now called Little Nick's Big Show. So every Saturday from 9 till 12 on 92.4 FM, you can tune in to Little Nick's Big Show.
Nice.
Because I'm short. I'm 5'5", and although I don't think I'm short, when I see pictures of myself with normal-sized humans, I'm like, I'm really short, aren't I? I'm the same size as Kevin Hart.
Okay. So he's doing all right for himself.
Isn't it just? So we call it Little Nick's Big Show, and I've been doing that now for, I think it's about 6 years. Okay. So here's the maddest bit. All that stuff that I've just explained to you, so presenting shows in the middle of the day, I was doing that while I was the arts editor at the Yorkshire Post.
Yeah.
So how I did it was this. I'd get up at 6, I'd get into the office, I'd work until like 11:20. This sounds made up, and I swear this is true. I'd then get on my bike, and I'd cycle to BBC Radio Leeds. I'd present the show 12 till 3, and at 3 o'clock I'd cycle back to the Yorkshire Post. I'd work until about 6, half past, and then I'd go to the theatre. I'd get home from the theatre, I'd write a bit more for the Yorkshire Post, probably finishing between midnight and 1 a.m, and then get up at 6 and do it the next day. And I did that for about 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you died. and then that was the end.
It's crazy to think, like, these days I have a nap every day. I can't quite fathom how I was doing that. But like within the year, I joined Emmerdale, and so it was probably about 6 months that I did. Like, I had that schedule, and then I joined Emmerdale, so I left the Yorkshire Post, but I kept doing Little Nick's Big Show, and I kept doing probably a bit more presenting than I should have done. Yeah. So there you go, that's the radio thing. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, could you just repeat? No, yeah, that's cool. Something you touched on about, racial politics. I think we're probably quite similar, because there's times in my freelance career when I've gone for a piece of work, or filmmaker needed, applicants welcome, especially black filmmakers, and it's, for me, it's been good to think, oh, I'm a black filmmaker, so yes, I am 95% more likely to get that job. But then at the same time, I'm also like, oh, well, are you just giving me that just because I'm black?
Yeah.
And this now has to have a black angle.
Yeah.
I don't massively want to get stuff just because of the colour of my skin. So sometimes it's worked in my favour, and then sometimes I think, well, I don't just want to do it just because I'm black, because what if I'm garbage? What if I was garbage? You're just going to give it to me? Yeah. I don't know. What's it been like for you?
Man, that's such a good question. Do you know what? If there's a BAME, and I mean, there's a whole thing at the minute about. So Lenny Henry's got this thing called Race About Comedy, or Comedy Race, or something like that. Yeah. And he's talking about British comedy and race within that. And he talks about the Real McCoy and Goodness Gracious Me. Yeah. And there are some people at the minute, there's a conversation going on in terms of racial politics about black people and Asian people and ethnic minorities, and how we shouldn't be lumped under the same umbrella as BAME. Yeah. But the truth is, I've seen things for BAME people, and I've 100% gone for it. And slightly controversial thing to say. Shall I say this?
Say it.
All right. I believe in positive discrimination. Mm-hmm. I think that for a very long time, the people who have had the power have made decisions, and they've said, no, we believe in diversity, and we don't want to have all white males on the boards of our companies or represented in our theatre, and change isn't happening fast enough. So do you know what? My take is, you've had long enough to do this because it's the morally correct thing to do. You've taken too long, so we're going to need positive discrimination. And I 100% believe in that. I think, and what's that phrase about when you're used to being dominant, equality looks like oppression. And I think we're gonna have to force people to create equality. Yeah. So anyway, so I have applied absolutely for BAME schemes, and I've been accepted onto things because of the colour of my skin. The fact that I'm mixed race is an interesting one. Some people think I'm not Asian enough. Yeah. I'm not, like, I don't do poetry. I've done some slam poetry, and I've got this poem that goes, I'm not white enough, I'm not brown enough, I'm not black enough, will I ever be enough? And so that's like an internal thing that I'm dealing with the whole time. But the truth is, once I get into those positions, then I will absolutely make sure that the work that I do is the best that it can be, so that I can represent that. And you know what? I'm in a position to tell stories that the vast majority of people aren't, because most people aren't mixed race and they don't know. And the plays that I've written have always had some kind of, apart from Red Cuts, have had some racial element in them. Not because I want to be a token or a box ticker, but because that's what I want to talk about. That's what what I want to say about the world. So if I have a platform, I feel I have a responsibility to say, the homogenous mass that have been writing plays for 100 years haven't talked about this, so I'm going to talk about it.
Yeah. That's good. It's good that you've been the first. Just going back to something you said about your dad, giving you the name Nicholas and wanting you to speak a certain way. Do you think that's provided more opportunities for you? Do you think that's opened more doors for you? When you turn up somewhere and you say, "Hi, I'm Nick," and then they've heard you over the phone and then they see the shade of your skin. Do you think that's... I don't know. What's your experience of that been? Has that created more opportunities or less opportunities, do you think?
It's honestly something that I struggle with because, like I said, so the phrase is I can pass. I obviously can't when I'm standing in front of you because, I don't know, is he Mexican? But so there's a thing I do, and I know we'll talk about the stand-up thing. I talk about being racially ambiguous. But actually, I think there's a real issue here. Okay, I know how to navigate the white world. Because even though, my dad's really Bangladeshi,
How Bangladeshi?
Oh man, so Bangladeshi. He came here when he was 11, but he did that thing that a lot of our parents did when they came over, which was he became more British than the British. But he does it in a... But since getting a little bit older, I think, he sort of rediscovered the fact that actually he's very much Bangladeshi. Yeah. And even though he was doing that, he brought us up to say, there's going to be a point, and I certainly used to dismiss it as not paranoid rantings, but he'd always say, there's going to come a point in this country when they're going to tell you that they don't want you here. So what are you talking about? And then all of a sudden you find where we are today and you go, hang on a minute, that's worryingly prescient what he was saying. He also said, if you want to succeed, you're going to have to work twice as hard as the next man because the next man's going to be white. Again, not something that people will be used to hearing me say, but it's what I was brought up with. The way that he helped me navigate, the way that he helped me get to a position where I'd have a career that could take me around the world if I was kicked out of this country, which sounds so paranoid, but actually it doesn't. These days, it really doesn't. Yeah. And by giving, so the way that he did that was by telling us to work hard, making sure we understood the importance of a career, giving us names like Nicholas, and teaching me how to pass white. He didn't teach me his language so that I could navigate the white world. So here's the thing. I can pass. I do worry sometimes. When you have a group of people and they go, so there are two things actually. They go, he's our black mate or he's our Asian mate or whatever. Yeah. I kind of want to go, I'm not really though, because I act dead white. I know I look like this and I have got things about me that are very Asian. I'm dead proud. Yeah. I'm so proud to be half Bangladeshi. But I'm quite safe brown for you in this environment. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And the other thing that you may have heard, I'm not sure, is when... I can't tell you how angry this makes me. I thought we'd left all this stuff behind a long time ago. That thing of going, you're all right, you're not like the rest of them. The number of times I heard that growing up. And then it disappeared for a little while. Yeah. In the 90s, it didn't matter. By God, has it come back with a vengeance. You're not like the rest of them. And that... They've no idea how much that hurts because actually I already feel like I'm probably not Asian enough, even though there's always someone willing to remind me that I'm definitely not white enough. Yeah, it's a real issue of identity.
I get the same thing because I grew up. My mum you know, we grew up on an estate in Bradford, but my mum didn't want me hanging out with certain boys. My mum made a point of when she came to the UK in the 60s of she didn't just want to hang out with her other Jamaican friends. She wanted to meet new people, and she said that, you know, my other Jamaican friends, they don't socialise, they don't step out of their comfort zone. So, you know, going forward, almost 60 years later, those Jamaican friends who moved in the 60s still have their very strong Jamaican accent, you know, so strong that I can barely understand. They need subtitles, you know, with all due respect, you know, you can't really understand what it says because the accent's so thick. So my mum raised us, you know, to mix and to meet people and to have experiences. And I think I sometimes worry about some of those similar things, like am I black enough, you know? But then people then associate being black enough with how much reggae music do you listen to, you know, do you like Bob Marley? Or people are, Bob Marley, he's good, don't you? Thinking, well, I can name you some Bob Marley tunes, but just the same as my white friend or my Asian friend who can say the same amount of Bob Marley songs. But yeah, that thing about identity is big.
We've been told that there's a certain way to be black or there's a certain way to be Asian. And perhaps that's the thing that's going on, is that we're going, oh, maybe I'm not black enough or Asian enough. Hang on a minute, like, you're quite dark skinned, Marcus.
I'm black enough.
I am it. Like I'm a brown man. And the way that I conduct my life is not walking around being a brown man. I just am a brown man.
Exactly.
So actually, this is one way to be Asian. So actually, I am Asian enough because it's in my DNA. And am I supposed to? There's a comedian called Paul Chowdhury. I don't know if you know.
Oh yeah, I like
wildly
Paul Chowdhury.
offensive. Yeah. His latest is on Amazon Prime, and he does an amazing bit. Like the funniest bit that I've seen about the phrase "bud bud ding ding."
Right.
So I use that phrase in a comic way, thinking about Paul Chowdhury. But in order to be Asian enough, am I supposed to walk around with a bud bud ding ding accent? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah. Stereotypes, isn't it? We'll have a good stereotype, we're talking about comedy. Obviously, stand-up is another big part of what you do. And when I first met you, it wasn't.
Right, no, absolutely.
But stand-up is a big part of who you are now. So how did that happen?
It is now. It's a bit of a weird one. Again, are you sure you want the long story?
Tell you what, let's go for the a slightly abbreviated story. Yeah, we'll save it for your podcast.
Thank you. When I first met my wife, she said she'd never met anyone with as many stand-up videos and DVDs as she's like, instead of books, you've got these things.
Okay.
So she apparently assumed that I must have tried to do stand-up and just been really rubbish at it and just never decided to tell her, which is a weird thing. And the reason I know this is because when on our honeymoon we went to New York and we went to the Comedy Cellar, and she said to me, I have never seen you as excited as when you were in that Comedy Cellar.
Yeah.
It was like Mecca to me. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I come back from there and I say, right, this is the year. I must have been 40. Anyway, I say, this is the year that I'm going to do stand-up.
Yeah.
Something pops up on Facebook. It says, raise money and learn to do stand-up. I sign up for this thing. I do 8 weeks of classes. And on June the 3rd, 2018, I'm outside the Wardrobe in Leeds, quite a big venue, 300 people inside, ready to do my first ever stand-up. I'm going to do 5 minutes. I have never, ever, ever, ever been as nervous in my life. 2 weeks before, I interviewed Patrick Stewart on stage in Huddersfield. There were 1,000 people in the room. I went out and I did 5 minutes of just riffing, and then I brought out Patrick Stewart. I was totally fine.
Yeah.
Marcus was so different. I was it was horrible.
Yeah.
That was a year and July, August, September, October. That was a year and 4 months ago.
Yeah.
I've now done in the region of 150 gigs.
Wow. I didn't realise you'd done that many.
Yeah. I kind of went at it.
Yeah.
I've won a couple of competitions. I've lost plenty of competitions. I've been paid certainly not very much money. I've probably broken even given the amount of travelling that I've done with it.
Yeah.
I've died on my backside quite a lot. I've had some gigs where I've smashed it. In fact, last week I was in a competition in Harrogate, the Harrogate Comedian of the Year, which sounds small, but it's quite a big deal.
Yeah.
And I just died. I had 8 minutes and it just didn't work. 2 days later, I went to Halifax. I did the same set, smashed the roof off it, mate.
Nice.
Like, it was so weird. It was so weird how...
That's random.
Yeah.
How do you deal with... have you had any hecklers or anything like that?
Yes. So I was in Stoke and I was doing... So I'd done a 10-minute trial spot and that had gone really well. So they invited me back to do a 20-minute paid spot.
Yeah.
20 minutes is a long time to do.
Yeah.
Especially, it was too soon. Like, I was maybe less than a year in, and there's a guy who's really drunk, and he was just jabbering away, and I managed to ignore him. And we got about 12 minutes in, and I go to this guy. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I'm sorry, mate. What is it you want to say? And he says something. I couldn't understand a word he was saying. He was that drunk. And his mate says, so I was like, what is it he wants? And his mate goes, he wants to know if you've come here on a raft. I've been talking in this accent for 12 minutes. I was like, and I've got a video of it actually. It's online. I say, you don't like the people that come here on rafts. I assume that you've got an issue with refugees. If someone, they're coming over here taking your jobs, someone turns up on a boat with nothing but the shirt on his back and he takes your job, you probably should have worked a bit harder at school. And I'm in Stoke, it's an entirely white audience. I'm like, I'm about to get my head kicked in. Yeah. There's a pause, and then everybody else applauded. And I was like, smashed it. Yeah. So that was probably the worst heckle that I've had.
But you've handled that well. You've handled that really well, and you've got a good reaction as well. No one's
that was
booed.
the biggest thing. No, the biggest thing was that, because I was like, I have to say this, I'm not going to get out of here alive. A lot of my comedy is quite, I don't want to use the word aggressive, but I definitely talk about race and racism, and I absolutely, my wife keeps saying to me, so she came to this club in Liverpool called Hot Water. It's an amazing club. Yeah. And she's like, you're going to get beaten up one of these days. You're on stage calling everybody gammon. Yep, I am. Yeah. And I do, I wield that power, and I definitely say some things that some people do not like.
But that's your hook, so that's fine. That's absolutely fine, yeah. I'll tell you what we're going to do, Nick. We're going to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to play a bit of a game with you, if that's all right. Mm-hmm. Game I play with everyone who comes on the show. It's called This or That. Okay. I'm going to ask you if you would do A or B. Yep. But you have to pick one of them. Okay. Okay. I'm going to have some game show music which kicks in as well.
Is it like a rapid fire thing?
No, it's not. Right. Not rapid fire. No, it's nice. It's a podcast. Okay. We're chilled out. Okay. Take all the time.
I'm thinking radio. Okay.
And the news is coming up shortly. There's no news coming up, mate. There's no news at all. Nothing new to
report.
Let's
get a check on the roads with David.
Yeah, exactly. So here we go. So we are going to go for it. We have 10 to ask. So here we go with the first one. So Nick, Likely Lads or Porridge?
Okay. Shall I say why you're asking that question? I interviewed the writers of Porridge and The Likely Lads, Dick Clement and Ian Lafreniere, a couple of days ago. Porridge every time.
Porridge?
Ronnie Barker was I never saw The Likely Lads. Okay. I just didn't watch it. Porridge. Ronnie Barker was amazing.
Yeah, Porridge is good. Okay. Second one, 2 options. Would you take 1 year in jail or losing 1 year of your life?
Oh, that's a good question. See, I would not do well in jail. I would not do well in jail, but having said that, maybe I could just read for a year. It'd be good to do that, take a little break.
Hide in the library?
Yeah, I'd hide in the library.
Okay.
I'll do a year in jail. Let's see, it's an experience, you know?
Get some tats. Is he Mexican? Looks hard. Right, okay. Next one. You do smoke, don't you, Nick?
No. It's been 6 months I haven't smoked.
All right, okay, I'm going to cut that one out there. Forget that one. Okay, next one, Nick. Losing the ability to see or losing the ability to speak?
Oh, man, these are good questions. So going blind or going mute?
Yes.
I mean, I'd have to be blind. I'd have to be, because I'd be buggered. I'd have to be blind.
Okay. Yeah. Fine, that's good.
I used to date a blind girl. She wasn't a blind girl. Yeah. One of my exes was blind, and I sometimes talk about that in my stand-up. Okay. And she's cool with it.
Okay, that's fine. Simple one. Jimi Hendrix or Prince?
So I'm wearing a Friends t-shirt. When I was 14, I turned up at a party wearing a Kylie t-shirt. I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan. Jimi Hendrix and Prince are too cool for me. I don't know either of them. Like, genuinely, I don't know.
Oh, really? Well, you got to pick one.
I've heard of Prince. I've heard some of his music.
Really?
He's got a little red Corvette, a beret or something. No, seriously, I'm not. This isn't put on. I like really uncool music.
Okay. Well,
if you'd have asked me Taylor Swift or Katy Perry, then we'd have a big discussion. But I'll say Prince because I've heard of him.
Okay. Very quickly, Katy Perry or Taylor Swift?
Got to be Tay-Tay all the way.
When you shorten a name and you know her. Fair enough. Fine. Okay. Okay. Radio or stand-up comedy?
Oh, mate, what are you doing to me? Oh, man. I'm a lot better at radio than I am at stand-up.
Okay.
Do I have to choose one of them?
Those are the rules.
That's the hardest question I've read. It depends. Am I selling out stadiums or being on Radio 2?
8.
I'd have to
7.
choose. I'd have
6.
to choose radio.
Radio. Okay. Good.
Wow.
Okay. Would you rather be an unimportant character in a great movie or an important character in a rubbish movie?
Important character in a rubbish movie. I've been the star of the show every
Front
day.
and centre. Nice one. Okay. Ben Affleck or Ben Stiller?
I couldn't tell them apart. It'd have to be Stiller. I watched Ben Affleck in Surviving Christmas the other day. He's the worst actor I've ever seen in my life.
Right, okay.
Stiller all the way.
Stiller all the way, okay. Whitney Houston or Aretha Franklin?
Oh, that's a bit unfair. I grew up in the 80s. It'd have to be, going back to my cheesy music question, because I know Aretha's really cool and everything.
Yeah.
But it'd have to be Whitney.
Whitney, okay. Just 2 more. Held at hostage, held at gunpoint, forced to dance to music, or forced to sing to music?
I have to choose one of them.
Yeah.
If I had to choose
You're
one.
not the hostage, you have been taken hostage.
Okay.
You're not the hostage taker. You've been taken hostage.
I'd go with forced to sing.
Yeah.
Because I have been on occasion, and I'm really bad at singing.
Okay.
But in my head, I think I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good at rapping.
Okay. We might put that to... We'll see at some stage. We'll see about that. Okay. Last one, and I'm trying to get you in a bit of trouble here.
Mm-hmm.
A night in a wonderful hotel with your lovely wife, or a day out at the cricket at Lord's? Try to create controversy and drama here.
Man.
You see, if I took this long to answer that question,
I don't get
I'd be in trouble.
But I don't. We're very lucky. I don't get to go to Lord's that much.
Okay.
I've only been to Lord's once, and I've.
I think you've answered it.
Yeah, it's been the cricket. I love her.
Yeah.
Cricket. I'd just go to a hotel anytime with her.
Okay, but this was the anytime moment, and you've picked the cricket. Okay, well she's listening, so she knows. Let me know how the conversation goes afterwards.
You have to listen. Oh wow.
That's really cool, man. That's the end of the game. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Nick, I'm going to draw things to a close. Cool. If people want to find out more about you, if people want to read about what you're up to, can you share any links where people can find you?
Yeah, sure. Thanks to what my dad did, I've got a fairly... You can't be fairly unique. It's not unique. I've got a fairly unusual name. So you can find... So Nick Ahad is my, I'm the most famous Nick Ahad there is. So I've got a website and you can follow me on Twitter and stuff like that.
Fantastic. Yeah. Wonderful. Nick, it's been a pleasure having you.
Thanks, man.
It'd be great to have you back to talk about, new projects which are happening, new plays, new stand-up gigs. We'll put links to anything that you've got underneath the video. Yeah, Nick, thanks for being here, mate. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
It's been great. I've loved it. This is my second ever podcast. I was on one a little while ago. I'm going to shut up. You've got me talking. Thanks, Marcus. Bye.
Thanks a lot, mate. See you later, Nick.
Bye.
Adios. Well, you've made it this far, you've stuck it out to the very end, so thank you for watching this episode of So This Works. If you've enjoyed this video, please like it, please leave a comment, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, please tell a friend about it, please share this video, and also hit that notification bell so that you're notified as soon as a new video has been released. If you'd like more information about this podcast, please check out the website sothisworks.co.uk. I hope that you will join me for a future episode, and until next time, take care of yourselves.